Joining me on the phone this morning from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Lucas Vebber. Good morning, Lucas. How are you?
Good morning, Meg. I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I am delighted that you're able to join me to talk about the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and how your organization, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, is had to, again, remind our government officials about adhering to the law. Let's talk about this issue, I believe, in the town of New Chester, which, honestly, let's start with, where is New Chester?
New Chester would be just south of Wausau. So,
how about
we're
that?
talking about the center part of the state. So,
all right.
Yeah. So really, I mean, just as background, going all the way back to 1776, when Thomas Paine was handing out his common sense pamphlet on the streets, advocating for the Declaration of Independence, the distribution of political materials in this country has been a protected activity for time immemorial. It's just always been there. We've always valued this, especially on public land. You're on the streets, you're in parks. These are the places where we can distribute political material for as long as we've been a country, even before we've been a country, right? So, and that's reflected in our First Amendment. The First Amendment protects the distribution of political materials. Our Supreme Court has said that no form of speech is entitled to greater protection, and that when the government makes it more difficult to engage in those modes of communication, it necessarily is imposing a First Amendment burden. So flash forward to the town of New Chester. Following the November 2020 elections, the town adopted an ordinance, and the ordinance just simply straight up banned the distribution or posting of political materials on town land. Now, they defined political materials as signs, handbills, or flyers, or any other printed material that supports or opposes a candidate for partisan office, or supports or opposes a ballot measure. So that's kind of interesting, because if you were handing out political materials for a state assembly candidate, it would be illegal in New Chester. But if you were handing out materials for a town board candidate, it would be lawful, because those are nonpartisan offices.
Interesting.
So violations there, they put a $1,000 fine on that. We represented an individual in New Chester who had previously handed out yard signs on public land, and he wanted to do so again in the future. But he looked at this ordinance and he said, I don't want to face a $1,000 fine. So he called us at will, and we engaged him right away. We sent a letter to the town demanding that they immediately repeal this ordinance. After some back and forth at town board meetings over the summer, they did ultimately repeal it a couple weeks ago, which is great news for our clients, and frankly, great news for all Wisconsinites, that some of these government entities who do the wrong thing can see the light and do the right thing in the end.
Well, I think when you're facing some sort of legal action, that tends to motivate people to make changes. But,
yeah.
It really does solidify what we talk about often on this program about getting involved at the local level and paying attention to what our local elected officials are doing and the decisions they're making, and not being willing to just accept that because they pass an ordinance that it's indeed legal to do so. And so I'm grateful for organizations such as yours. Can you talk a little bit about what transpired? And I know you said that this was a back and forth at town meetings. I presume that you had to come up here and attend those meetings in person?
Yeah, I went to I think the first meeting was maybe in June. I attended the first meeting. We presented our letter to them and just made our request. They said they need to talk to their own attorney. I told them that's a great idea, because I was very confident what their own attorney would tell them. And I came back the next month to the town board meeting, and sure enough, their own attorney did tell them their ordinance was unconstitutional and, burdened First Amendment rights. And that kind of kicked off the process. So it took them, they did immediately vote not to enforce the ordinance, but it was still on the books until a couple weeks ago. And that's when it got repealed. So, we've seen kind of a troubling trend in this area around the state. Other communities are doing similar things, very restrictive, whether it's a yard sign ordinance or where you can distribute materials ordinances. Those are all First Amendment burdens, and they're all very likely unconstitutional. So if any of your listeners see something similar, please give us a call at Will. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so let's make a distinction, because what popped into my head is so this individual was handing out campaign yard signs on public land, but he wasn't actually posting them or, I guess, putting them on in the ground on public land. Is that legal to do?
Yeah, so you can. I mean, if you're kind of there, you can probably put it in the ground around you as like part of a rally or something on public land. But you can't just go to like a public right of way and put a yard sign up,
Okay.
maybe in the middle of an intersection or
Right.
something. That the city could likely remove those. But so that's the distinction. What makes it really unconstitutional is it was when the city decides, based on the content of the sign, whether the sign is legal or not.
Mm-hmm.
So if a city has an ordinance that says political messages are unlawful, but for sale signs are okay, that's likely unconstitutional because it's called a content-based restriction.
So, Lucas Vebber, thanks for joining me this morning. Can you give our listeners your website? Because I know you have there's a form if there are issues like this that, as you said, that come up in your community. Go on their website. You can fill out a form to contact and reach out to Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty and get some action on and have some representation by one of your attorneys.
Yeah, you can reach out to us, have your case reviewed by an attorney. Our website is will-law.org. That's WILL-LAW.org. And you can contact a lawyer. There's a link right there at the top of the page. So.
Thank you so much, Lucas. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work and look forward. I mean, this, I guess what I'll say, Lucas, is this is job security for you guys. I mean, I think you're constantly expanding and adding new counsel to your team. And I mean, this is precisely why cases like this. So again, thanks for all you do. Have a great weekend.
You as well, Meg. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.